All right. Hello. Welcome. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for being here. My name is Mia. I'm a member of the Robbinsdale for Racial Justice group. I'm a resident in Ward 3 near Lee Park. And we are having our very first conversation with Mr. Tyler Kline, our Robbinsdale Ward 1 City Council candidate. So thank you, Tyler, for speaking with us today. The intention of this meeting is to hold our conversation about racial justice and equity issues as they pertain to our elected officials ahead of our general election on November 3rd. Members of the Robbinsdale for Racial Justice group have come up with a few questions, and we presented these questions to Mr. Kline a couple of days ago. We are here to listen and become better informed voters. And for those of us who are white members of the community, we're here to be better allies to our neighbors who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. We will allow space for follow-up questions from the audience at the end. Also, Tyler has let me know, feel free to respond in the chat and in real time, and he is happy to address questions as they arise too. Let's see, we will, as always, white people will defer and listen to BIPOC members when they have something to say. This meeting is recorded and will be posted with our previous candidate conversations. We will keep audience microphones off for the time being. Again, feel welcome to use the chat. You're more than welcome to keep your camera on if you like. And we will try to keep our meeting to about 45 minutes. So we will invite Tyler to give us an introduction, and then I will jump into our questions. And with likely time at the end, we'll open it up to follow-up questions from this group too. So we will wrap up just before 6:45-ish, unless the conversation, if we need to continue, we certainly can. And Tyler can tell us how to get in touch if there are further questions after that point. Okay, so Tyler, thank you so much for being here. Can you give us a brief introduction of yourself, please?
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Tyler Kline. I'm, a candidate for Ward 1 here. I live in a rental home with my wife Maggie and our 5-year-old son Jackson, which it is very quiet right now because they went to a park for the next hour to give a little bit of a quiet space. Sometimes it's a little tough with a 5-year-old to get him to stop bouncing on the walls here at this time of day. But yeah, my wife and I, we just celebrated 19 years together this past week.
Wow, congratulations.
Thanks. It's high school sweethearts and all. And yeah, we're pretty excited to live here in Robbinsdale. I lived here during high school and kind of in and around the community most of my life here. Yeah, I work for State Senator Ann Rest. So I've, met a lot of people or heard from people about other, issues that affect Robbinsdale at the state level. And when I heard that Bill Blonigan wasn't going to run for this seat again, and he was looking to run for mayor, I reached out to him probably in the early winter to confirm that. And I just thought that with my background at the state level that I could, more directly do some good for the community besides just the aid work that I do for our senator. I also am always working 2 jobs, it seems, because getting by is not always the easiest. So I bartend right now, and I'm in St. Louis Park, and prior to that I was in New Hope at Frankie's for many years.
Nice.
Before I went back to school, I ran the locksmithing company in downtown Robbinsdale for about 8 years. It used to be next to the Hackey Miller Meats for many years. So I've worked in Robbinsdale for most of my adult life now. And yeah, I'm just, I'm excited to be running for office.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you here in this conversation. Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, we have questions around 6 topics that this group has submitted and organized in advance. And by the way, these same questions will be asked in the same order to other candidates who meet with our group. And we have plenty of time per question, so feel free to elaborate as you like. If you're okay with it, I'll just kindly ask to wrap up if any answers go beyond, say, 5 minutes. And then I will hold off on any follow-up questions, but if the group would like to ask questions in the chat in real time, again, please feel free. So yes, let's begin. The first question, the amount of unchecked power held by the city manager is alarming to many members of R4RJ, Robbinsdale for Racial Justice, and is directly related to racial inequity in Robbinsdale. What are your thoughts on Robbinsdale's current government structure? And do you have any adjustments you'd like to see to work towards equity for BIPOC? And what are they?
Yeah, I mean, as we're set up as what is a manager council government here locally, it gives a lot more freedom to our city manager on day-to-day and things of that nature. And I would like to think that it's not completely unchecked, because the city manager is, she has that position at the, the pleasure of the city council. I mean, she can, she is there until a 3/5 vote, says she can't be there anymore. And I think that that is something that needs to be known, that, if the people are unhappy with their city manager, they should be letting their council know such things, so the council then can let the manager know. Or, I mean, we're obviously, we're talking about our manager, but like that would be the same in any city. I would think that change can happen. It doesn't need to be just she has unchecked power. It can be very checked. I mean, she has a very high paying job that, if people aren't happy with, their council should know. So I would think that would probably be my number one adjustment, is letting people know that there can be change, just because our current city manager has been there for many, many years. When you have that much freedom, I think that you can kind of get away with a lot. And I think that if there's some standards coming from the community or the council, directly, that, we can see change.
Great, thank you. So our next question, when discussing racial equity, it's also important to think about the intersection of Black and Brown lives and the lives of the LGBTQ community. Would you support flying a pride flag at City Hall or the light post downtown? There's lots of questions here, so I'll read through everything first. So pride flag downtown, would you support flying a Black Lives Matter flag? If you don't agree with a BLM flag or banner, would you support a Blue Lives Matter flag or banner, and why? And then finally, how would you respond to criticism from residents regarding this? So why don't we start with the pride flag, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I think these are, it's just an interesting question. I mean, I for one, obviously support the Black Lives Matter group. And well, I mean, I guess, I won't get to that, but yes, I support would flying a pride flag. That's a pretty easy one for me, that, we should make every member of our community feel welcome and that they belong here. And I don't see any good reason where anyone could be against such a thing. So I would be personally, and if I, am lucky enough to be elected, I would support both of those things pretty strongly.
Great. So then that's a yes for the Black Lives Matter flag as well. And how about, oh, go ahead, please.
I mean, I personally support the Black Lives Matter movement and, what they're behind. But I can also, so for me personally, I would be in support of that, but I wouldn't be as 100% of supportive in an elected role, I guess. And, when you go on their website, they're a charity organization that has an Act Blue, donate button, which you have to be a Democrat supporting group to do that. And I think that then that you kind of get into, is this a political organization? You know, and I mean, that's something that I guess I could hear that argument from someone. So I would want to listen to more people, I guess, in that instance before I wholeheartedly said I would do something that I don't know. I mean, like I said, I personally would support it, but I guess I would want more conversation, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. And how about would you support a Blue Lives Matter flag or banner, and why?
You know, I have family members that are in law enforcement, and I want them to be safe, and I want good things for them, but I wouldn't support that flying, as they have a job that they've chosen to do, and I wouldn't support, I guess, any organization. Like, I mean, I don't, it's not that I don't support them as a job choice or a career, but I don't think that would necessarily be needed to be flown from our city streets, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And please, with any of my answers, if anyone has any questions in the chat, please let me know, or, different opinions that maybe I'm stumbling through.
No, I appreciate that openness to real-time feedback. I don't see anything in the chat yet, but again, okay. To the group, yes, feel more than welcome to respond in the chat at any time. So then finally, so issues around flying a flag or banner can perhaps evoke some criticism. If criticism arises from the community, how would you deal with that?
Well, I kind of think that any good elected official anywhere, at least that I've seen, is willing to listen to people in their community and have conversations with people they agree with and they don't agree with. It's an example I give often. At a community listening session we had, Skip Humphrey lives in a neighboring district, and he comes to some of our events, and he kind of talked about how when he was in office, people on the right or left would kind of get together and have conversations, and they would come to an agreement on things and disagreement on other things, but they could find common grounds and move on. I think that is kind of missing. So whether it's people in support of any of these flags or against that, I think it's a good way to listen to them and see where they're coming from, and then maybe give them your perspective as well. And then they kind of see where you're coming from or things you're hearing that, we all have our bubbles, whether we're aware of our bubbles or not. And I think that it's a good and healthy thing to hear from people in other bubbles. So I just think that would be a listening kind of thing. I want to be there to listen to people.
That's great. Thank you. I do just want to acknowledge a bit in the chat and some nice words from Jennifer. It's hard talking into the void, she says. Appreciate your perspective, and you're making a lot of sense. It's nice to have some feedback, isn't it?
Yes.
So great. I will move on to the question around the third topic. We acknowledge racism is systemic in our nation and in our city. What particular systems in Robbinsdale strike you as underserving or perhaps even actively harming our BIPOC community? And what thoughts or plans do you propose to address them?
It's the last thing you do is always one of the kind of things on your mind. And I spent a lot of today looking into not only our community, but neighboring communities about racial covenants and kind of seeing how they're handling it and the prevalence of them. Like, as I said, my day job, I work for our senator that represents us here, but she also represents Crystal, Golden Valley, Plymouth, and New Hope. So just kind of seeing, like, I was just kind of finding background on what they're doing about it, or if they even have those sorts of things. And I kind of discovered that it seems as you get further away from Minneapolis directly, that there's less and less, if not none of them. And I think that is really, I'm happy that the city's taking a look at that, because if you are a, Black, Indigenous person of color, like living here, and every house on your block says, that you can't own this house, whether it's enforced or not. That's a pretty, how do you feel welcome in that community? And how do you not think of, your family members that grew up before you dealing with that? And I just don't think that those sorts of things make our community welcoming. And I'm glad that the city's looking into that. I guess that, and as well as, just people that work for our city. I think that the people who work here, whether it be at City Hall, the police department, the, public works, they generally look the same. And I think that if you're, needing city services, or, they're coming to flush your, fire hydrant at the end of the road, if those same people never look like you, I think that that's, going to make people think like, hey, do I belong here? And that's something that we should actively be looking at.
Great, thank you. Our next question, what are the community, governmental, and logistical obstacles that you anticipate having when working towards racial equity?
I guess that was a tough question for me to look at when I was thinking. And I guess it's not, a concrete thing, but it's trust. It's that people need to trust their government. And in today's ultra untrusting, especially at the federal level, of just so much that comes out that is blatantly untruthful, it trickles down to all levels that, and then at the end of the day, it makes, people untrusting of their local government, which it's trying to find ways to, go around that and, find ways to trust in our local government and come up with ways that people don't feel they're, trying to get over on them, or I don't know. I think that that's probably the biggest. It's, some of the other questions that are coming, it's trying to reach out to other people and things, and it's, you want to include people in the conversation, and if they don't think that the people they're talking with are trustworthy or going to do anything about it, it's hard to continue on that path to actually getting change.
Right, that's great, thank you. Okay, our next question. What is your vision or plan for the city to do more to support minority-owned businesses? And how would you, as a city council member, recruit, encourage, and provide support for Black business owners looking to open or relocate to Robbinsdale?
I think that Robbinsdale has always done a really good job of supporting local businesses and small-owned businesses. I think back at my time working in downtown Robbinsdale, I'd look out the front window and all these businesses around, whether they're small restaurants or, a print shop, they're small owned places that our community kind of rallies behind and tries to support. You could always, save $2 by driving down to Home Depot, but people would, support the local, the hardware store. And I think it's finding ways to, attract, to make, just different, BIPOC people, business owners, or people looking to open up, letting them know that we will support their business too. And we will, we can be a place where they can grow. You look at, some of, the restaurants downtown, that it started with, a small little thing, and now they've grown in our community. And I hope that that can be something that other businesses will do as well. Part of that is the vision. I struggle with a specific policy that, we could implement that would bring them in, to our community. I think it's a lot of, trying to be open, and, it's someone always knows someone, and if you live here and person X knows person Y, and person Y wants to open up a business, it's kind of letting them know, hey, there's a space here and there's a community that will support you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have one more question that we have prepared for you. And then again, just speaking to the group, if you have follow-up questions, feel free to start thinking on those, type them in the chat. After this question, I'll take a look if anyone wants to wave at me for follow-up questions too. Okay, sure. So last question here. How would you leverage your role as a city council member to foster a more racially just Robbinsdale?
I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's allowing the residents to know that they have a voice there, and a ward city council member has 1/5 of the vote. You can really change a lot with that. And I think that if the community kind of sees that, and, I was at the Human Rights Commission they had an event at Lakeview where people got to, tell their stories about ways that, things that have affected them in their community. And it really was, it was, I wish it was eye-opening, but it's not. I mean, to hear some of the stories, I mean, I've heard them from my BIPOC friends, and I've seen them from coworkers, and it's good for those to be heard by other people in the community that may not see that. There's again, kind of my day job, during one of the many special sessions we've seemingly had, a senator from Minneapolis, Jeff Hayden, was speaking on police reform, and the chair of the Judiciary Committee is a white senator from Maple Grove, and he kept just talking about how great his community is and how great their policing is. And Senator Hayden just repeatedly kept saying, that's because you're only looking at it through your eyes. You got to look at through everybody, look through it my eyes. He's a large, larger Black man, and his, interactions are different. And you just have to be, willing to listen to everyone, and, outwardly looking for those people, because I see that a lot of community events you end up seeing the same faces, and it's trying to make sure that you have other people and have ways to include them, and then bringing their voice to city council. Hopefully I will be the person elected for this, and I will be the one up there talking, but I won't be talking with only my own voice. I'll be talking with people in the community that get to share their experiences.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have now covered all of the prepared questions that we have for you. Now is the time if we have questions from the group. I do see a question from Jackie that I'll read to you. It's here in the chat. Jackie says, hi Tyler, I know you're a parent. How do you plan to support young families while serving on the council? And what do you think might encourage young BIPOC families to choose our city? Great question, Jackie.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I am a parent, and I am struggling with sleep every day. I think one of the things that you can do to support, young families, and, I'm lucky that, I'm not an old parent, but I'm also not, I'm not in my 20s anymore either. So, I think it's letting people know what resources are available to them, for aid and different community, things that take place. Like, I can't tell you how many, fire department open houses I've been to in my life, because I've looked into that and shared, and it's letting people know what things that they can do for activities that aren't necessarily, spendy. Like I said, I work 2 jobs. I'm not getting by lavishly, I guess. And I know there's a lot of people in that same boat. So you start to find ways to take advantage of things that are, not terribly expensive. And encouraging BIPOC families there's so much, good things about our community, our proximity to everything. We are a first ring suburb. I think that there are a lot of things that are, approachable about our town, I guess. I've lived in other cities and almost never known my neighbors. And I know everyone on my cul-de-sac, everyone's super friendly. Like I had knee surgery and one person was mowing my lawn because they knew that I was doing this because we've had conversations. And I think that there's a lot of, good in our community that we can build on. We can, and there's, it has the, because of our proximity to Minneapolis and St. Paul, we have jobs and that are relatively accessible to this community. And yeah, I guess that's what I got.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And thank you, Jackie, for that great question. I am going to take a look at the group here. Nick, it looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I have a two-part question because I don't want to blindside you at all, Tyler. So my first question to you
Go for it.
is, did you get a chance to watch or listen into any of the questions from the first round during the primary interviews with the other council member candidates?
I did not.
Okay, so the reason why I asked that is, this was we only have 5 questions here, yet other candidates got opportunities to speak to a lot of other questions that the community has around racial justice, and would be wondering if you'd want to, I could ask you maybe some of the top questions and you could, or I could just type it. Actually, what I'll do here to be more fair about this is I'm going to copy and paste it in there. And if you see a question and you go, oh, I really want to talk about that, that'd be great.
Nick, I am totally fine if you want to rapid fire me. I mean, that's, you don't always get time to prepare for things. I totally understand that. And, bear with me if I stumble through an answer, maybe don't give it completely justice.
So this is a lot to take in, Tyler, in the chat, but Nick has copied and pasted all of the questions that we asked other candidates. Let's focus on the top one, I think, because actually the way that we gathered questions from the group was like a Facebook poll. And so the question at the very top of Nick's list of questions, this was like the #1 question that people wanted to know from the other candidates. And that question is, what are some of the racial inequities you identify in Robbinsdale? And what are the metrics that you would use to measure our progress in those areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it during this time. I don't know, it's like someone's, I'm speaking to the void a little bit, so it might be not remembering it correct. But I mean, I think that it's just, equity with the people that we employ. I don't know about other people here, but, a lot of jobs that I've had or people that I've hired, whether it be interns at the Capitol or people from my days at the locksmithing company, it's word of mouth. And it's that, Steve said, this is a great person, hire them, or Kim said, really give this person a shot. And I think that if we're only kind of, we're not really having a lot of equity in our employment here, then the word of mouth that we're going to get when positions open are from that same bubble. And you don't really see that change. So it's kind of finding ways to, attract a more diverse, application process, and finding ways to, posting in the Sun Post isn't always the best way to apply, to attract candidates.
Right.
And I did see a question down here too about the Human Rights Commission. Can I?
Yeah, please. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, that is such a, a great asset that our community has. We look to our neighbors, 2 blocks down the road from East Crystal, they abolished theirs. They didn't want to hear from people on these issues, which is really sad. And I think that, it's been great. We need to encourage people to be a part of that group, and then, you know, actually show follow through. We're kind of going through that right now with the crime-free rental ordinance, which as a renter directly affects me. I mean, if I had someone pull up in my driveway smoking weed and get arrested or, you know, get ticketed for that, according to that crime-free ordinance, I should be evicted because they are a visitor to my property, whether anything or not. And that's a pretty crazy thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's making sure that the Human Rights Commission sees progress from their work they're putting in. They, you know, prior to this year, I think they've met kind of on a bi-monthly basis almost. I mean, sometimes more often, but since the George Floyd murder, they've been meeting a lot more. And I think it's the city council's responsibility to take the work they're doing and, you know, support it. And if they're not going to support it, to hear very specific reasons why they're not. I mean, the city council at the end of the day are the ones that, you know, they were elected to these positions and they have to take the votes. But if we're going to have a thriving Human Rights Commission, you have to show them that they're, you know, they're valued.
It's nice to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. So I know, again, it's a lot to take in. Nick put a few more questions in the chat. It's a lot to scroll through, especially as you're speaking here as well. If you'd like a moment to look through the questions, if there's anything that jumps out at you that you'd like to address. Oh, and we have an additional question from Zach. Perhaps
Sure.
we can start there. Zach asks, hi Tyler, can you talk a little bit about your role with Ann Rest and how that would impact how you represent your ward and the city as a city councilman?
Okay, so at the state Senate, every senator gets one staff member, a legislative assistant, and different, you know, offices can kind of decide what that role looks like. You know, some people are, you know, I know there are offices that only answer the phone and do schedules. There are some that are very policy, you know, they do a lot of the research on policy that's going to get introduced. Senator Rest is, I've now worked for her since 2016, and I interned with her before that. She's kind of let me do different, you know, this and that. I guess I've always enjoyed more of the constituent work and, you know, going, since I live in the community, you know, meeting with people, whether it be at the Capitol or in the community. And same with like lobbyists that come down for particular issues, whether they're lobbyists, you know, that are lobbying on some issue or lobby organizations that are there as a group for their day on a hill. I end up taking a lot of those meetings because Senator Rest, I don't know how well people know her, but she wants to be educated on everything directly herself. So she just does so much reading on topics that if I put too many meetings on her calendar, because I also do that part of it too, that I know I'm going to get yelled at a lot. I know I have to leave a lot of specific time for her to research it. She wants to be educated, and I get it. She doesn't want to vote for anything that she doesn't know how that's going to affect people. So I guess I've been pretty lucky that I've got to have a lot of these conversations and make different connections with people, you know, in our area or different groups. And I think that, you know, I think that only helps me as a positive for being on a city council, because I have a little background of, you know, if there's a specific topic, I can be like, hey, this person who may not even live in our community, but I know that, you know, say she lives in Crystal, and I can reach out to her and be like, hey, I know you've done a lot of work on this. Do you know anyone in this community? You know, and then I can get some feedback there. And I think that it's also prepared me for how slow change can be from time to time. You know, it's for how much you want to see it immediately, that, you know, the process was, you know, designed not to be the quickest moving. So I think that it kind of prepared me for that as well, that, you know, it's not a disappointment if something doesn't happen tomorrow. And to realize that working for the good of anything, it's worth the time.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Thank you.
Zach, I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Well, I'm not speaking for Zach, but Zach also has sent another question to me privately in the chat, which I think we do have time for. His question is, it's kind of a fun one. What excites you the most about getting elected to City Council?
I don't think I've been asked that. It's more directly, I think, that I would get to have say in things that are happening. It would be my name on the roll call of a vote, where I have had many good conversations with Senator Russ and other senators. I mean, I actually had a really nice conversation with Senator Dibble. I was very briefly at the protest at the church down the road here about conversion therapy. And I saw him there, and we kind of talked afterwards about that you get to hear other people's kind of saying, and you get to say things, but when you're actually there, it's you that gets to do it. Senator Russ and I have definitely disagreed on policies or votes, but it's the job of any good staffer to only have one voice that comes out of an office, and it's the person with the election certificate. So I get to try to bend her ear on things, and I can say that she has absolutely taken my advice on stuff and changed her policy, her views on different things, and I'm proud of that. But I don't know, I guess I'm most excited about that it could, that I could be the one doing it.
That's great. Thank you. I did see another question from Diana come in the chat.
Sure.
Diana asks, would you reach out to our neighboring community of North Minneapolis and work to build a supportive connection with our neighbors? And if yes, how would you do that?
Sure. I mean, it's, I for a time I lived in North Minneapolis in the Camden neighborhood, and I used to make that bike ride here into Robbinsdale to see friends in this area when I was younger. I think it's involving local groups, it's, groups like this one, or, other things that are more on the books, with their, council or their, at their state level. Again, I have a pretty good relationship with their elected state senator, Bobby Joe Champion. And I think that it's, you ask the people there, what groups do they see that would be, someone to work with to build our area. I mean, we share a parkway there. I mean, they're our direct neighbors, and it's, the people involved in that area are going to have a better idea than I would. So I think it's just making sure, you reach out and try to engage those communities.
Great, thank you. I want to invite you, I know there were lots of questions from the previous conversations that we've had with other candidates before the primaries.
Sure.
Again, if you want to take a moment, we've got a couple more minutes, so I think we could answer maybe one more question here.
Yeah, while I'm scrolling up here, I mean, thank you all for doing this and hosting. I mean, in a COVID world, it is really difficult to get in front of anybody. As running this campaign, and I also have a role on Senator Russ' campaign, that it's, I never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable in their own homes. And I have specifically not door knocked one door. I've been through the neighborhoods, and I've left literature 2 times now through every home there, so they would have information or could get in contact with me. But events like this where people can ask direct questions, and I'm not showing up at their doorstep while they're trying to eat dinner, which in a normal election is exactly what you do. But there's just too much going on where it's just, I don't think that's a safe option or a respectful option. So thank you all for taking the time. And then, I mean, if anyone does have any other questions, I am super open to having phone conversations. I mean, text messages.
Great.
I have a 5-year-old who loves going to parks, and that is great. If anyone ever wants to meet at a park while he is running around, I will talk with people. It is, please never hesitate to reach out.
Great. And I mean, speaking of which, what is the best way for people to reach out to you in terms of website, email? What do you prefer in case we do have additional questions to take outside of our meeting?
You know, I used to be a little more guarded about my cell phone than in the past. There's nothing like getting inebriated phone calls from people that aren't even constituents that are upset that the government's stealing their tax money.
Oh,
So
dear.
I used to be a little more, you know, hesitant, but for this group, or I mean, anyone in Robbinsdale, my cell phone, it's 763, here I can type it in here too, 763-439-1842. You know, email, I have electtylerkline.com. I'll respond to people that way. I have a Facebook page. I'm pretty good at responding to people quickly if anyone ever has questions. Yeah, it's like I do my best. I don't know if people watch The Office, but I accept all woofs, you know, any form communication, I will respond.
You mentioned electtylerkline.com. Is that your website?
At Gmail, I'm sorry.
Oh, at Gmail. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
I probably did it wrong. Yeah,
at Gmail. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
I do have another minute if anyone has anything or.
Yeah,
whatever.
anyone? Actually, let me take a look to see if anyone's waving at the camera. Before Jackie left, she did say thank you. Yeah. I don't see anything else. I do want to say thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today. I do also want to just quickly thank the Robbinsdale for Racial Justice team for supporting this project through scheduling and formatting these questions. I mentioned this in a previous meeting, but I think everyone in this group is really good about getting out to vote. So I'll just take a chance to remind everyone to find at least 3 friends or family and just remind them to get registered and to go out and vote. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you again. Yeah, others are saying thank you in the chat as well. So Tyler, thank you so much. And yes, best of luck.
Thank you, everyone. Have fun watching the debate tonight.
Definitely. That's what we're off to do. All right.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.